Democratic Alliance invoking Section 19.3 of the Government of National Unity Agreement due to disagreements over the Expropriation Act, amongst other pieces of legislation. Party leader John Steenhuisen informing President Cyril Ramaphosa that he recently, that the signing of the Expropriation Bill as well as the NHI Bill prompted this action. He believes Ramaphosa and the ANC are ignoring the terms guiding their relationship within the GNU. But how should these GNU partners be dealing with inevitable disagreements that are going to come up over the next 4 years? Let's bring in governance expert, Professor William Gumede, who joins us now via our videolink for his thoughts. Prof, lovely to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed for making time. You've had experience with trying to get parties around the table to speak about disagreements. We're told about the clearinghouse mechanism that was meant to be where GNU partners in particular go to deal with this. But here we are with these public spats that certainly don't bode well for this alliance, at least if the optics are anything to go by.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Yes, I mean, really, this is a failure of the mechanisms, dispute resolution mechanism. So clearly, it hasn't been implemented. It's there. There's supposed to be a clearinghouse, hasn't been implemented. But I think, you know, the bigger issue, really two big issues. I think on the one hand, is there's possibly a misunderstanding from the ANC and of how to be engaged in a big coalition and the GNU that we have, is that the party appears still to be in the mode of, it's a majority party mode, whereas it is part of the 11-party GNU, where it is one of the 11 parties, and it has to consult on the key issues before it goes out into the public. So clearly, this is a case of the Expropriation Bill of the ANC actually acting as if it is the only party in government. Now, that's the difference between a party that's a majority party and a party that is part of a coalition. That's the biggest part of the coalition will have to engage with its partners before it goes out and make big announcements like this.
If Fikile Mbalula's response to this on X is anything to go by, he seems to understand the situation differently. Part of what he's arguing, if you like, is that, in fact, when it comes to bills that have already been passed by Parliament, there isn't necessarily that responsibility to bring the GNU along. I don't know how accurate a reading of this clause is, but I do wonder whether or not it bodes well for the relationship, especially because ultimately it is the GNU that has to enforce these bills. Oh, what a pity. It looks like our connection there to Professor William Gumede has, at that crucial point, left us. I'm hoping we'll try to re-establish that for you to continue our discussion with the time we have left. But it's interesting, of course, to watch the back and forth between these GNU partners. Yesterday, News 24 reporting that the Rand seems to have reacted. I know there are cynics among us who aren't necessarily, how do I phrase this? Who don't really buy into that, or who aren't convinced that this is how these things work. But no matter where you stand on this, it's important, of course, at the very least to have a coherent message from GNU partners insofar about how they're going to proceed, especially when you consider the stakes around these pieces of legislation. The NHI bill, the Expropriation Bill, in some ways will have an impact on all manner of people across society. And so if you have a situation where it seems members of the same government are pulling in different directions, there's going to be obvious jitters, even in places like the markets, who are trying to obviously look for a sense of stability insofar as how they are going to respond to these different developments. So we'll try to reestablish once again that connection with Professor William Gumede to get you a sense of, at the very least, what conflict resolution should look like in the context, and again I emphasize, of inevitable disagreements. The DA and the ANC, for one, have spent much of our democracy at each other's necks. It comes as no surprise that they're going to see these crucial issues differently. The question is, from the moment that they decided to work together in the GNU, has enough groundwork been laid to ensure that at the very least they're able to bring forward a coherent, clear message when they communicate these changes to the public? I suppose the jury is still out on that. As soon as we're able to speak to the Prof, we'll hopefully be able to continue our discussion.